Good morning. We are going to go right into the presentations. There are 6 scheduled for today. So the goal is to complete all of the presentations today. If we do not, we will meet. Let me go to the final exam schedule. So this is the final exam schedule. To look it up, I'll just show you how I looked it up. I was at the main website of Stan State. On that landing page, I just typed in final exam schedule in the search bar. Then I clicked on that little, that's a magnifying glass. I don't know if any of you still kind of know what magnifying glasses are. They were used to be able to read text that was too small for the reader to discern without a magnifying glass or to look at other kinds of objects. Final schedule is the first option that pops up. And then here is the schedule for spring 2024. For Tuesday, Thursday classes, the time slot for classes, any class that meets from 11 a.m. to 12:15 p.m. for the final exam is Tuesday, May 21st. And the time allotted for this, where nothing else is happening, is 11:15 a.m. to 1:15 p.m. So if we don't finish today, we would meet on Tuesday, but virtually, not in person, virtually. So I would create a Zoom link for Tuesday, May 21st, and we would meet at 11:15 a.m. and stay until the last presentation is finished. So I just wanted to give you all that heads up. So we're going to go ahead and start with Joaquin. And so let me just make sure if, yep. So Joaquin, if you would let me know if you would like to project the presentation from your device, or if you would like me to project your presentation.
Yeah. Um,
You're breaking up. It's
the
unfortunately you're breaking up. I don't know if it would help if you
is
logged. Oh.
and the more finished product of the presentations. But if you want to send the second one that if you want to project the second one that I sent you, that would sound good.
Okay, we
Can
can
you hear
hear
me?
you. Yeah, we can hear you now. So I'm gonna go to my inbox. Did you send it to my Stan State email?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, that's way better.
Hello?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I found it.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
We could hear you
I could hear you
better.
before.
Let me see. I'm clicking on it, but nothing's, oh, let me see. There we go. Okay. So we can hear you, and I'm gonna mute myself now after I share my screen. And you can get started whenever you're ready. So I can't hear anything right now. Um, yeah, I can't hear anything. I can't hear anything, so we're gonna go to the next presenter. I'm not sure. Let's get out of this. So we're gonna actually go to the next presenter. I'm not sure if you can try to troubleshoot in the meantime, Joaquin. So the next presenter is Emily. And let me go back to stop share. Emily, would you like to project your presentation from your screen, or would you like me to project it? And you're on mute, Emily.
Hello?
Hello?
Yes. So let's see. We can hear Joaquin again. Joaquin, could you? So Emily, thank you. We'll go ahead and go to Joaquin. So Joaquin, we're ready whenever you are.
Okay. Um, okay, now I can see it. Perfect.
Let me.
Okay. Hello, my name is Joaquin, and I decided to do my presentation on Jackie Robinson. Um, Next slide, please. So, why did I pick Jackie Robinson? This quote alone is um, a pretty good understanding on why I picked him. It says, "Life is not important except in the impact it has on other lives." And um, what Jackie Robinson, I think, best examples that quote is everything that he went through, not only in his professional baseball career, but as later on in the slides through his life, is it was never about him. It was about understanding the bigger picture and understanding that sometimes sacrifices are required in order for a greater purpose. And I think Jackie Robinson best exemplifies that as being um, one of the first trailblazers, if not the first trailblazers, for not only just African Americans, especially highlighting African Americans, but any that otherwise wasn't able to because of their race or ethnicity. Next slide. So Jackie Robinson's early years. Jackie Robinson was born in January 31st, 1919 in Charles, Georgia. Robinson was also raised primarily in Pasadena, California. Growing up in a relatively poor and kind of hostile community, Robinson would join gangs at an early age. It wasn't until his friend Carl Anderson persuaded him to abandon it and focus his time more on school, and that would later lead on to sports, especially early on in his collegiate career. Next slide. So Jackie Robinson's collegiate career. In 1920, Robinson attended Pasadena Junior College, where Robinson was a four-star athlete, including track, football, basketball, and of course, as well as baseball. Ironically, in UCLA, better known as a football star, Robinson played football for his all his 4 years of his his time in UCLA. Also, he continued playing track and basketball as well as baseball during that time frame. Next slide. So after Jackie Robinson finished college, he got drafted into the military. In January 28, 1943, Robinson was granted the OSH and was commissioned for second alignment in the Army, second lieutenant in the Army. Robinson was drafted for services during World War II and was court-martialed for refusing to sit in the back of an army bus. So even right there was kind of the start of the pushback that Jackie Robinson would later get further along in his life. Next slide. So the Negro Leagues. For anyone that is not familiar with the Negro Leagues, it was a league devised of solely African American ball players because at the time, with segregation, they weren't allowed to join the professional baseball leagues yet. But in 1945, Robinson played his only season in black baseball as shortstop for the Kansas City Monarchs. Um, so one thing that I wanted to highlight here for Jackie Robinson was even though he only played one season for the Monarchs and in the Negro Leagues, although there were more talented baseball players playing in that league. One thing that I wanted to highlight was one of the reasons why he was given the opportunity instead of others was not necessarily.
Joaquin, we can't hear you. You cut out. Let's see. Yeah, we still can't hear you. What we'll do is for right now is I'm going to keep the slide there and then we'll go to Emily and come back to see. I don't know if it would help if you logged on and then logged back off and logged off and then logged back on again. See if we can finish your presentation. That's really, really informative and great information. So Emily, we're going to go to you next. Would you like to project your presentation from your screen or would you like me to project it?
Um, Generally my computer doesn't let me do the projection, so I was wondering, would it be okay? I emailed you my presentation. So if that's okay, that would be great.
Okay, that's definitely okay. Right. All right, we can hear you really well, so I'm going to mute myself.
Okay, so could I begin? Okay, perfect. So today we're going to be exploring the legacy of Ella Baker, and my name is Emily Lopez. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. So who is Ella Baker? Ella Baker, born and deceased from 1903 to 1986, was a civil rights activist and organizer whose work spanned several decades. She played a pivotal role in various movements, including the NAACP, the SCLC, and the SNCC. Baker was a passionate advocate for grassroots and organizing and believed in empowering ordinary people to enact change. You can go ahead and what's the next slide? Alrighty, the movement. Ella Baker was active during the civil rights movement, particularly in the 1950s and 1960s. Her activism intersected with pivotal movements such as the Montgomery bus boycott, the sit-ins, and the freedom rides. Baker's work laid the groundwork for the emergence of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, the SNCC, and his grassroots approach to activism. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. Contributions to the movement. Ella Baker's contributions to the movement were immense. She emphasized the importance of collective action and encouraged young activists to find their own voices. Baker's mentoring and guidance helped shape the leadership of future civil rights leaders such as Stokely Carmichael and Diane Nash. Why did I choose to write about Ella Baker? I chose to look into the legacy of Ella Baker because her approach on activism resonates deeply with the Black community. Her emphasis on grassroots organizing and empowering marginalized voices align with our own values and aspirations for social justice. So for I have a short film. You could either there's two of them. We could watch one or both. It doesn't really matter. Each one of them, the first one right here, is 1 minute long, and then the second one is about 3 minutes. So I kind of wanted to see if you would want to pick whatever one you pick, we could watch one.
Let me see. I'm going to see if I can do the
Yeah, I was trying to add in a clip and it was really difficult. It wasn't letting me before, so I had to add the link.
okay. Let me see. I don't Let me just go directly to YouTube and see if I can look it up. You can let me know. So I'm not able to copy and paste very well. Let's
Let's see. I'm trying to see if I could pull it up on my end. I might be able to put it into the chat.
chat. That would be great.
Yeah, let me see if I could just pull it up real quick. Yeah, it'll take about a couple minutes.
Looks like maybe it's these two.
Um,
And this one.
no, it's
Oh,
hold on. Let me find it real quick. Sorry about that.
that's okay.
Thought I was gonna be able to pull it up easier. Okay, give me one moment. I think I got it. Okay, let me just look it up because it's not going to. Okay, let me see if I can copy the link.
When I think of legend.
All right. Here we go.
Runes loads a complete serving of fruits, veggies, adaptogens, vitamins, minerals, super mushrooms.
When I think of legendary Black history makers, I think of Ella Baker. In 1960, when sit-ins broke out throughout the South, she saw that there would be value in bringing together sit-in leaders from many campuses. And she arranged a conference at Shaw University in Raleigh, North Carolina. Out of that conference grew the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. Ella Baker wanted the ability to have a place where we could keep up with what was happening on all the campuses where sit-ins were taking place. Miss Baker supplied a philosophy. I recall her saying, don't expect to lead the people. Find out what the people want and what they want to do.
Okay, let's go to the second clip. Oh, I know that one is. Okay.
And I'll just paste that one real quick.
What do two of the most important civil rights organizations have in common? Meet Ella Baker, the brilliant Black woman whose ideas and careful grassroots organizing helped give birth to Dr. King's Southern Christian Leadership Conference and to the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. For this reason, Ella Baker is reverentially known as the mother of the Civil Rights Movement.
Born in Virginia in 1903, Ella Baker was educated at Shaw University before moving to New York City in 1927. By 1930, she'd started organizing.
Ella Baker joined the NAACP in 1940 and helped young leaders find their voice and their leadership capacity. And one of those people was Rosa Parks, someone we all know. Ella Baker was also recruited by Martin Luther King to help run the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, which was helping to build the civil rights movement.
Then in 1960, a group of Black college students were denied service at Woolworth's segregated lunch counter in Greensboro, North Carolina. In an act of nonviolent protest, the students refused to leave, inspiring similar sit-ins across the South.
Ella Baker left SCLC to help a group of young people form the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee.
I remember Miss Baker saying, many of you are from some of the quote-unquote best schools in the country, so when you go into rural areas, don't go in there thinking you're going to lead the people. Find out what the people want.
When you heard Ella Baker speak, you were ready to get out there. She really wanted us to stand up and speak out. And she gave you the energy to push. You can lead, you can be somebody, you can do something.
More interested in effecting change than public acclaim or financial reward, Baker inspired a generation of young Americans to risk their lives to fight racism, sexism, and white supremacy. Simply put, the mother of the civil rights movement had many children, and we are her heirs.
So, in conclusion, Ella Baker's legacy serves as a beacon of hope and inspiration for all those committed to social justice. Her belief in the power of ordinary people to affect change reminds us that activism is not confined to the past, but continues to shape our present and future. And these are my my work cited.
Thank you so much, Emily, for an excellent presentation. It also actually connects really nicely with Joaquin's, what the portion he was able to do, looking at this common theme of activists like Jackie Robinson, Ella Baker, who not only are they not engaging in this activism for financial reward or notoriety, but they're actually actively sacrificing their livelihoods. They're putting their lives on the line. And I think it's very compelling because we see the current day legacy of Ella Baker and of this form of protest by university students in particular, of peaceful sit-ins in the encampments that are happening at university campuses all over the country, to end the genocide in Palestine and the colonization by Israel, which is a Zionist apartheid state. And similarly, law enforcement is being brought out. Presidents, which there are a number in the California State University, are supporting student demands to divest from any kind of business investments in Israel, are now being sanctioned and put on leave by the chancellor of the CSU. And we see the similar strategies with the encampments, which are peaceful. And then law enforcement, or like literally law enforcement on university campuses that student tuition and fees are paying for, are being unleashed on peaceful protests. So it's really great that you all are connecting these dots. And Ella Baker is not often highlighted. I think it was so important to add that she also was someone who, for example, mentored Rosa Parks, who most often is credited with her role in the year-long Montgomery bus boycott in Alabama. We're going to go on to Curtis, who's going to present on Cornel West. And Curtis, would you like to share, project the presentation from your screen, or would you like me to project it? Something's going on. Curtis, we can't hear you. Yeah, I think maybe I suggest logging off and then logging back onto the meeting.
Can you hear me now?
Okay, we can hear you now.
All right. I would like to try to screen share.
Okay, I'm going to let you know when you can.
Okay.
Okay, I've given you co-host permission, and just make sure when you scroll your screen, if you have any videos or audio clips, to click on share sound before you click on the share screen. Okay, we can see your screen, so I'm going to mute myself.
Okay, so my name is Curtis McClure, and I am presenting on Cornel West. He's an American philosopher, political activist, and a social teak. So a little bit about his early life. Cornel was born in 1953 in Oklahoma, but he actually grew up around here in Sacramento, California. His mom was a teacher and a principal, and his father was in the Air Force. When he was young, he was very inspired by Martin Luther King and the Black Panthers. And as a teenager, he would go to protests and demonstrations and stuff like that. He had he really cared about education and pursued a higher education where he wanted to go to Harvard. He ended up getting his PhD in philosophy at Princeton University in 1980, became the first African American to do so. And then also he had taught at several schools such as like Yale, Harvard, and Princeton. He was he has made a bunch of books throughout his life, and he's still alive to this day. One book that made him very famous was Race Matters. I personally got to read this book for another class when I was in the JC, and it's a great read because it tells you why race matters, kind of, because I came from like an anthropology, and my anthropology teacher's like, race isn't a real thing. It does, like, that's manufactured and stuff. And he's not saying that that's not the case, but he's saying why it's important in our social thing. And then let's see. I have a video where he talks a little bit about this. You said I have to share sound.
Yeah, so yes, so if you click stop share.
Okay.
So then when you click on the green share screen button, it's going to take you to that next screen. You want to make sure that on that right-hand side, there's a little box that says share sound. So you want to click on that first. Yeah, exactly.
You talk about race, this is not some abstract discourse. It's a matter of wrestling with the most fundamental question that we'll ever have to wrestle with, which is, what does it mean to be human? What kind of human being are we going to choose to be? This is a quest for truth, and the condition of truth is always to allow suffering to speak. The very anthem of black people in this country is lift every voice. It takes more courage to dig deep into the dark corners of your own soul than it does for a soldier to fight on the battlefield. That's how you find your voice. You can play all kind of games as a spectator, but when you are involved, when it comes to your house and your loved ones, all of a sudden things shift. And that's one of the great stories of white supremacy in the United States. Are we actually going to keep track of the underside? The last thing you want to be is just well adjusted to injustice. Or sooner or later you're going to reap what you sow. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. Any discussion about race is to talk about catastrophe. Lynching, terrorism, these are not problems, these are catastrophes. Psychically, structurally, institutionally. You're talking about race, you're not just talking about skill acquisition and information. You're talking about self-interrogation and social transformation. The ways in which subjectivities are constructed, the ways in which individuals are created. And then the choices that people make, not just as persons, but in collectivities, in communities. Greatness has to do with the quality of your service to the least of these, the depth and scope of your sacrifice to those catching hell. All human beings in the face of grief and death must objectify that grief, and through their moans and groans transfigure it into sound, then poetry, then language, and maybe be able to pass it on to the next generation so they will be able to live lives of some decency and dignity.
And going to some of his books, a lot of his books deal with just society and race and culture. Um, he's a very powerful speaker, very elegant with word. He's always like, he moves me so much. Um, he is not just someone that sits on the sideline either. He will protest anything. You have the Free Palestine over here. This was like around the Ferguson incident. Um, also, like he's a big proponent of how people are taken away from the wealth of people and how that affects everyone. Um, uh, he's more activism stuff. He, since the 1980s, have been involved with civil rights advocacy, always combating the racial discrimination and stuff. One of the things that's great about him is that he is not scared to be on television. He is constantly on all platforms, and it's really like good to see, because most of the time people with his ideal just get like washed away. But he'll go on all the mainstream media stuff, even like Fox News right wing, to his speech. And I think that's a very important thing. And he's very critical of both parties, not just Republicans, but also the Democrats. Because at the core of his thing, he cares about the social issues, and this all comes together. And here's a little highlight of him on different platforms.
The problem is we've got a system, my brother, that rationalizes legalized loot, Wall Street greed, Wall Street crimes. There's no doubt that this is America's moment of reckoning. I thank God that we have people in the streets. Can you imagine this kind of lynching taking place and people are indifferent? The catalyst was certainly Brother George's Floyd public lynching. But the failures of the predatory capitalist economy to provide the satisfaction of the basic needs of food and health care and quality education, jobs with a decent wage, at the same time, the collapse of your political class, the collapse of your professional class. Their legitimacy has been radically called into question, and that's multiracial. Most of my fellow citizens, God bless them, that are in the streets, are there, peaceful, who are there marching. And when it does spill over into violence, looting is wrong. But legalized looting is wrong too. So then the question becomes, how do we keep alive moral, spiritual standards, keep alive, stand in contact with the humanity of all of us across the board, but recognizing we're living in a moment of massive economic, what is capitalist economy? Failure when it comes to delivering the needs. The nation state, failure to protect. Critical criminal justice system, failure to be fair. The young people are saying, you all have been hypocritical. You haven't been concerned about our suffering, our misery, and we no longer believe in your legitimacy. We must have an anti-fascist coalition against what's going on in the White House Republican Party. We have to tell the truth about the milquetoast, cowardly activity too often that we see among the neoliberal wing of the Democratic Party, and we must be critical of ourselves in terms of keeping alive the highest moral and spiritual standards of Martin Luther King Jr. And Fannie Lou Hamer and Ella Baker. And you see it at work in the soul of Brother George Floyd's family. If we're more concerned about the property and spillover than the poverty, decrepit school system, dilapidated housing, massive unemployment and underemployment, we're gonna be doing this every 5, every 10, every 20 years. What we need is a nonviolent revolutionary project of full-scale democratic sharing, power, wealth, resources, respect, organizing, and the fundamental transformation of this American empire. You want double clap?
his activism, it kind of started as he was a professor at Yale, and he actually helped demonstrate and advocate for students there to protest apartheid in South Africa in the 1980s. In the 1990s, you had the Rodney King protests, which he helped as well nationwide to get that starting because of what happened there. He was very against the Iraq war from the beginning. He's been protesting, as you can see in some of the videos, the Wall Street movement, very opponent of the Black Lives Matters to bring up the racial injustice that's happening, and George Ford protest as well. One of the main reasons why I've picked Cornell West was one, I do, as my sociology, as my social science background, I have emphasis. One of them is political sciences. And this man is a legend when it comes to being part of the political advocacy. And once I found him, I don't know, 10 years ago, I immediately fell in love because everything that he preaches is what I feel is wrong with society. And right now he is actually running for presidency. He's doing it as an independent, and you won't hear a lot about him, and it's not like he probably doesn't have a chance to win, but the important thing is trying to have support for him, because if any of these third party candidates can reach a certain threshold of votes, they get money for that from the government, which will help in their political system going forward. And having someone like Cornell West being a political leader, I think is the best thing for a country. One of the things that I feel like we're lacking, like he said in all his videos and stuff, is that I feel like we need more people from an educational background with this justice, like our own professor. If you were the president of the United States, we'd be much better off, because people like you and him, you guys understand the root of all this problem, and you don't want to shy away from it. You want to bring it up and then fix it, where political parties that we have right now are just pushing to the side, and that's not the issue, but it's all very embedded and stuff. So I picked him because he moves me every time I hear him speak. You could go on YouTube. He has countless of videos over hours long, and he's so elegant how he speaks and stuff. And we need people with more backgrounds of his style, more background in ethnic studies and anthropology and sociology in charge of our society, because that's what our society is. I still don't even understand why we don't teach more of this stuff at the high school level, because only 33% of people go to college in our nation. And then the other thing to that, for the males, there's not a lot of males going into college. It's predominantly females, and females understand most of this because they're being oppressed. So the people that need to learn more about this is males in general, right? And they're not going to education. We're not making it enticing for them. So you have to do it in the high school level, so they get a base fundamental of knowing all this kind of stuff. But yeah, I just absolutely adore him. I have all my references on here to check stuff, but yeah.
Wow, let's show our appreciation for Curtis's presentation in the chat, or in the using the Zoom emoticons. Yeah, I think it's so critical in terms of the role of academics and scholars and how to transition that into becoming public intellectuals. I've also read several of Cornell West's books. He's definitely been one of the major influences on me. And I also got to hear him speak, and I got to meet him when I was completing my doctoral program in Philadelphia. And I think it's important that you highlight that he did grow up in Sacramento. I actually had a friend in undergrad who also grew up in Sacramento, whose family was close to his. And also going back to Joaquin sharing that, I did not realize that Jackie Robinson had grown up in California, Pasadena, which is right kind of in the LA area. So many important and really evocative points that you made. And like that, again, really powerful use of statistics or data. 400, there is no way that any entity, and in this case, multinational corporations, make $485 billion over the course of 10 weeks. And this was during COVID without, that's a result. That is what he's referring to as looting, as massive looting. And $485 billion in 10 weeks, it's theft, right? Think about what looting is. It's theft of billions and billions of dollars that people who work are actually earning. It's a form of wage theft because the wealth is being redirected in really alarming ways, and that these multinational corporations profited tremendously off of COVID, and that the policies and even our money, taxpayer dollars were going to line their pockets, and that we still really haven't recovered even since then. So really, and I actually teach, do a deep dive on neoliberalism in my contemporary race and ethnic studies class. So thank you again. We're going to keep it moving. Juliana is going to present about Al Sharpton. So Julian, would you like to present from your device, or would you like me to present it from my device?
If you could present it from yours, that'd be best. I've never shared, so I'm not sure how that works.
No problem. I will look it up. And I think even today, if we stay on a little bit later, I think that would be preferable for everybody, because we are now kind of moving through these.
Yeah, mine's pretty short, and I can, so it should be fine.
It's saying that I need access. So basically, let me share my screen. So you want to make sure, let me go
No, I
here.
just accepted it.
Okay, awesome. I'll go back here. Here we go. Is that, let me just do a refresh. This is annoying. I have too many emails, like truly. So let's go back to Leon. Let's see. All right, we can hear you really well, so I'm going to mute myself.
All right, so my presentation is on Al Sharpton. I chose him just because of the fact that I've never heard of him before, and I just wanted to learn about somebody new. Next slide. So his full name is Alfred Charles Sharpton Jr., and he was born in the Brownsville neighborhood of Brooklyn, New York City, to Ada and Alfred Charles Sharpton Sr. He preached his first sermon at the age of 4 and toured with gospel singer Mahalia Jackson. And his mom took a job as a maid, but her income was so low that the family qualified for welfare and had to move from middle-class Hollis, Queens, to the public housing projects in the Brownsville neighborhood of Brooklyn. Sharpton graduated from Samuel J. Tilden High School in Brooklyn and attended Brooklyn College, dropping out after 2 years in 1975. In 1972, he accepted the position of youth director for the presidential campaign of Congresswoman Shirley Chisholm. Between the years 1973 and 1980, Sharpton served as Jane Brown's tour manager. In 1969, Sharpton was appointed by Jesse Jackson to serve as youth director in the New York City branch of the Operation Breadbasket, a group that focused on the promotion of new and better jobs for African Americans. I think it's the next slide already. Sorry, I forgot to write down when to switch slides, so I kind of forgot. I'm not gonna lie. Okay, no, that's yes. Okay. So here are a couple. Look at a couple of his activism things. So one of the people he orchestrated a protest for was Bernard Goetz. He shot 4 African men and was acquitted of all charges. So Sharpton led protests against the decisions of the jury. For Bensonhurst, there were 10 to 30 white Italians beating 4 African-American boys in Brooklyn, with one being fatally shot by a resident. During a protest that Sharpton was leading, he was actually stabbed, but he was able to recover after that. Sharpton founded the National Action Network in 1991, an organization designed to increase voter education, to provide services to those in poverty, and to support a small community business. And when Fred Hari was told to evict his African-American tenant, Sharpton led the protest. At a later date, a man walked into the tenant's store, shot several customers in the store, poured gasoline all over the store, set it ablaze, and killed himself inside the store, actually. Sharpton led protests for people who were killed by police officers as a result of police brutality and racial profiling. Some include Ahmad, and I'm gonna butcher some of these names, Amadou Diallo, Tisha Miller, Asumain Zongo, Sean Bell, George Zimmerman, Eric Garner, and George Floyd. Sharpton was also an advisor to Obama during his presidency on racial issues. The next slide. Today, he hosts a talk show called Keeping It Real, and he also hosts Politics Nation on MSNBC on the weekends. And from the protests he organized, he never regretted protesting for the people who were wronged, but does regret some of the things he has said in the moment. Another thing that I did notice about Al Sharpton was that it didn't matter, like to him, it didn't matter if it was an African-American person that was wrong, or it didn't matter what their ethnicity was. He stood up when he felt that somebody had been wrong and tried to get them justice for whatever happened to them. So yeah, that was my quick little presentation on Al Sharpton, and yeah.
Thank you so much, Julian. I think it's so interesting. I think what your presentation also highlights is that activism takes many different forms and all of the different kinds of experiences. I had no idea that Al Sharpton was the tour manager for James Brown, for example. Now, James Brown is also known as the father of soul, and also his song, Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud, is considered the anthem of the Black Power movement itself. And yeah, and showing how Al Sharpton was an advisor to Obama. And I think also piggybacking off of what Curtis shared in his presentation, Cornel West was actually specifically very critical of Obama. So again, it just like, it shows that range of how individual activists also choose to engage in collective action in a variety of ways, and that they can be use kind of different strategies and can be critical of the choices that they make. So I think it is important that to recognize that it's not homogenous in terms of what activism looks like and what forms it takes. So we're going to keep it moving to Ashley. Ashley, would you like to project your presentation from your screen, or would you like me to project it?
Can you please project it for me, please?
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I will look it up. Go back. Ashley. Yeah, I do this a lot more frequently than you all. So, okay, it does say that I need access. So if you could just
Okay, let me fix that.
give me, I think I need editor access to be able to project it. It's weird.
Okay, I just updated it.
Okay, thank you. And we can hear you very well.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, so I'm gonna, whoops, let me get out of this. So I'm going to mute myself.
Okay, so my presentation is about the Black Lives Matter movement. So the phrase and powerful movement created in 2013 called the Black Lives Matter movement started from the tragic murder of Trayvon Martin. I chose this Black organization because the story of Trayvon Martin was one of many police brutality murders that stuck with me from childhood to now an adult. As a Black child, hearing about how another Black child was killed by a police officer, and as a kid, you think they are supposed to protect you, it's hard to wrap your head around that at such a young age. So that's my reasoning for choosing the Black Lives Matter organization. The Black Lives Matter, oh, I'm still on this, sorry. The Black Lives Matter Foundation spans across the United States, the United Kingdom, and Canada. Its objective is to dismantle systems of white supremacy and empower local communities to confront violence against Black individuals by both state actors and vigilantes. Through efforts to challenge and mitigate instances of aggression, fostering platforms for Black creativity and progress, and prioritizing Black happiness, the movement is affecting tangible enhancements in the well-being of Black lives. How much progress has been made since the Black Lives Matter movement has been created? The progress, I chose to talk about the Black Lives Matter because it represents one of the most impactful social justice campaigns in recent history. It brings global attention to issues of systematic racism and police violence against Black people. It encourages society to confront uncomfortable truths and work toward meaningful change. The movement's dedication to raising awareness and mobilizing grassroots activism and fostering conversations about race and privilege aligns with my values of equality and social justice. We can go to the next slide. So I found this quote by Martin Luther King Jr. "Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter." So there's a documentary about Trayvon Martin, and on that it says, "Time heals all wounds," which refers to the fact that it takes time for all wounds, mental or physical, to heal. Healing is never instant, and it is important to remember that recovery is a process. But when someone is innocently murdered, time won't heal, only justice will. So then this, the chart on the left shows from 2013 to 2024, the number of police brutality cases filmed and not filmed. While many people killed by police in the United States were shot, other causes of death have included tasers, vehicles, and physical restraints or beatings. In the United States, the rate of police shootings is much higher for Black Americans than it is for any other ethnicity, and recent incidents of police killing unarmed Black men and women in the United States have led to a widespread protest against police brutality. So 12,771 people have been killed by officers, and 70 plus officers have been arrested for their brutality. The Black Lives Matter movement is a global activist movement that began in the African American community to fight against the violence and systematic racism targeting Black people. It frequently protests against police killings of Black people, but not only that, also racial profiling, police brutality, and racial injustice in the United States criminal justice system. The creators of the hashtag Black Lives Matter, Alicia Garza, Patrice Coolers, and Opal, I don't know how to say that, I don't want to butcher it, expanded BLM into a national network by 2016. In 2015, BLM activists began to engage with the 2016 presidential election. The response to the movement has mixed views. The phrase "all lives matter" emerged as a counter response to Black Lives Matter. But "all lives matter" has been criticized for disregarding the unique struggles faced by Black people and trying to take away from Black people's struggles. The significance of the Black Lives Matter movement is important. It was impactful historically, influencing social attitudes. Another part of that is, I don't exactly remember the year, but on Instagram, there was, you post the Black square to show your support for the Black Lives Matter movement. So that's one example of that. And BLM brought widespread attention to systematic racism and police brutality cases trying to be covered up. Through protests, social media, and many other forms of activism, BLM influenced policy and legal changes. Some cities and states have implemented police reforms such as revised use of force protocols, body cameras, and civilian oversight boards. A quote said by Karen, "I've never seen self-reports of protest participation that high for a specific issue over such a short period of time." BLM's influence extends to cultural domains, including film, television, literature, and art. It has inspired creatives to address themes of racial justice and equity, leading to greater representation of Black experiences and stories in popular culture. Thank you.
Let's show our appreciation for Ashley and this really informative and powerful presentation by using the emoticons or in the chat. And I think it's so important to, again, another example of really powerful use of statistics, of like it is based on the actual numbers. Black men, women, and children are targeted, and unarmed Black men, women, and children are killed at higher rates than any other racialized or ethnic group. And to go into the outcomes of collective activism and organizing, also in relation to your presentation, Ashley, and also Curtis's highlighting Melina Abdullah, that is going to be our last unit in Top Hat. It is going to be looking into Melina Abdullah is actually being really active in supporting in the creation of Black Lives Matter in SoCal, along with Alicia Garza, Opal Tometi, and Patrice Cullors, who were more based from the Bay. So you all are actually going to be learning more about and actually hear from the three co-founders themselves with this last presentation in Top Hat, which I will open right after class today, and it'll be available for you to complete until May 24th, which is next Friday. So we are going to wrap up the presentations. And I'm going to go back to Joaquin, so we may be in a little bit late. But okay, so Maria, you have emailed the recording of your presentation on Rosa Parks. So I'm going to pull that up right now. So Maria did send in her video, and we will watch that right now.
Okay, today I will be doing my presentation on Rosa Louise Parks. Rosa Parks was born February 4th, 1913 in Tuskegee, Alabama, and she died October 24th, 2005 in Detroit, Michigan. Growing up in Alabama, Rosa Parks experienced the injustice of segregation. She attended segregated schools as a child and often had to walk long distances to get to school because Black children were not allowed to ride the buses that were designated for white students. Parks was raised in a supportive family environment that instilled in her a strong sense of self-worth. Her mother encouraged her to stand up for herself and others in the face of injustice. These early experiences with discrimination would later shape her commitment in civil rights activism. Throughout her life, she remained steadfast in her belief in equality and justice for all, inspired by the struggle she faced as a child in the segregated South. Rosa Parks was married to Raymond Parks. Raymond Parks was a barber and a strong supporter of Rosa's activism. They married in 1932, and their marriage was one of mutual support and shared values. Raymond encouraged Rosa's involvement in civil rights activities and stood by her during her arrest and the subsequent boycott. Raymond Parks himself was involved in civil rights activism, serving as an active member of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People alongside Rosa. If it wasn't for him, Rosa wouldn't have joined the NAACP. Parks is most famous for her role in the Montgomery bus boycott of 1955. On December 1st, 1955, she refused to give up her seat to a white passenger on a segregated bus in Montgomery, Alabama. Her courageous act of defiance against racial segregation sparked the Montgomery bus boycott, a pivotal event in the civil rights movement. The boycott lasted for 381 days, during which African Americans in Montgomery refused to ride city buses, leading to the eventual desegregation of the bus system. Rosa Parks was arrested, and the subsequent boycott brought national attention to the issue of segregation and helped bring into action the civil rights movement. Rosa Parks earned the name of the First Lady of Civil Rights and the Mother of the Freedom Movement. She received numerous awards and honors for her activism, including the Presidential Medal of Freedom and the Congressional Gold Medal, as well as in 1999 Time magazine's Top 20 Most Powerful and Influential Figures of the Century. In December 2000, the Rosa Parks Library Museum opened. She has received more than 24 honorary doctorates from universities worldwide. And President George W. Bush ordered a statue of Parks to be placed in the National Statuary Hall in Washington, D.C. Another thing that Rosa and Raymond Parks created or left behind as a legacy is the Rosa and Raymond Parks Institute for Self-Development, which is an organization aimed at empowering young people and promoting civil rights education. The Institute's mission is to carry on the work of Rosa and Raymond Parks by providing educational programs and services that help young people develop leadership skills, self-respect, and a commitment to social justice.
Famous for her refusal to move to the back of a segregated bus, Rosa Parks became a symbol of American civil rights.
Rosa Parks, this is the mother of the movement.
Born in Tuskegee, Alabama, on February 4th, 1913, Rosa Parks became a member of the NAACP in 1943. Parks actively worked for voter registration and desegregation. But on December 1st, 1955, in Montgomery, Alabama, Parks sparked a national movement.
As an African-American woman, she was relegated to the back of the bus, but the bus became crowded with white customers, and the bus driver demands that she moves even further back. And she and 3 other people were being asked to do this. And then he said, I'm going to call the police, basically. And the other 3 got up and moved back, and she refused, and the rest is history.
When Rosa Parks was asked whether she was tired that day, she said, I was not tired, and I was not old. I was only 42 years old. But what I was tired of was giving in.
Parks was arrested for violating city ordinances. After bailing her out of jail, NAACP President Edgar Nixon seized the opportunity and rallied an estimated 40,000 Black commuters for a citywide bus boycott.
People are watching what's happening in Montgomery. And 382 days later, on December 20th, 1956, Montgomery's buses are desegregated by the order of the Supreme Court. So part of it is the unity and the spirit that people maintained over more than a year of staying off the buses. Part of it is the galvanizing leadership of a very young Martin Luther King. So all of those kind of thrust the boycott before the country in a way that then provides an example of what is possible.
After the bus boycott, Parks and her husband both lost their jobs and were forced to move to Detroit, Michigan, where Parks worked as a seamstress, secretary, and board member for Planned Parenthood. In 1996, Parks earned the Presidential Medal of Freedom.
In 1999, Time magazine chose Rosa Parks as one of the 20 most influential people in the 20th century. And their comment was, by her simple act of protest, she galvanized a civil rights revolution.
On October 24th, 2005, Rosa Parks died of natural causes at the age of 92. She became the first woman and second African American to lie in state at the Capitol Rotunda in Washington, D.C. In 2013, President Obama unveiled a statue in the Capitol building commemorating Parks' significance in history.
Rosa Parks was a badass. Rosa knew that this lady with these little glasses could represent something really extraordinary, that the average person, the one that you may not expect, could be the hero.
The reason why I chose to do this presentation on Rosa Parks was because she was the first woman I can recall that was mentioned in my history class. I've always looked up to her, and she's one of the reasons why I feel confident enough to use my voice.
Okay, so that is Maria's presentation. What I'm going to do now is to wrap up, just take a few minutes. Joaquin, if you cannot unmute yourself, it's okay. We'll go through the rest of your presentation. So if you can unmute yourself. Or if your sound is working. Yeah, we can't hear you. So I'll go through the rest of this. So what Joaquin has shared with us is that Jackie Robinson was also a manager for 42 consecutive years. Branch Rickey was a general manager, and he was the man, who was mainly responsible for drafting Jackie Robinson to the Brooklyn Dodgers in 1946. These are pictures of him with a cigar and then with Jackie Robinson. And again, he never discount that power that we have as individuals, as well as the collective or power of the people, because he single-handedly desegregated professional baseball. In Robinson's rookie year, he would begin that in April of 1947, so just 2 years after the end of World War II. During this season, teams that were all white still, as well as all of the other players with the Dodgers, would forfeit games because they refused to play with a black man. Go ahead, Joaquin, if you...
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Awesome. So yeah, just kind of leaving off of that slide. Robinson's rookie year, start off with the Dodgers in April of 1947, and as you guys may know, I mean, already being a rookie in pro ball is not easy, let alone Jackie Robinson's case. It was met with a lot of unfair treatment. Some stuff that I wanted to add on that I couldn't really fit on that one slide is there was actually a petition between the players and the staff before the season started in spring training on whether or not they wanted to play with Jackie Robinson. There was a scene in the movie in which I'll get to later on in the slide, where the general manager essentially gave players an ultimatum: either play with Robinson or you don't play on the team. And a lot of players quit, and a lot of them were traded and requested because they didn't want to play with Jackie Robinson. And so they had to result on also staying in various different hotels because a lot of hotels didn't want to host Jackie Robinson. Definitely, he had to ride in a separate bus away from the team because a lot of the players didn't feel comfortable. And overall, it was just a grueling process for Jackie Robinson, which, like I talked to in my last slide, his character and his resilience and his attitude really kind of became kind of the driving force on his experience through his rookie year, and with the support of Branch Rickey, his manager, and his wife, he was able to get through that whole season. Next slide. And then there's also a YouTube video that I also added. And if you could play it for me, please.
Prior to Contrave, my eating habits were horrendous. It wasn't until I found a nurse practitioner.
During the offseason, Robinson was asked if he thought the Yankees were prejudiced. Yes, he responded. There isn't a single Negro on the team now, and very few in the entire farm system. The Yankees were furious, insisting that they would be happy to field a black player if only one were good enough. Many whites grew to resent Robinson's increasing outspokenness, and some blacks worried that it would set back the progress he'd made for them. Jackie Robinson ought to behave himself, one woman wrote the Chicago Defender, before he ruins everything for Negroes in baseball. Reporters who had once sung his praises now called him a rabble-rouser, urged him to be a player, not a crusader. The New Orleans Times-Picayune accused Robinson of being insolent and antagonistic, and declared that he had done more to widen the breach between the races than 10 of the most rabid segregationists.
He was being held to a different standard. Here's a person who's in full dimension. This is who he was. Without that anger, you don't get Jackie Robinson. Do you want to know Jackie Robinson, or don't you?
Because he was a black man, when he was being assertive, he was being put in a kind of stereotype of black men, like angry black man. He was not an angry black man. He was an athlete who wanted to win.
It's okay to be angry. Dr. King said so often, anger is a righteous emotion. It's almost necessary to your being.
Who wouldn't be angry? And what we would prefer to do in America is to always focus on the person who's angry and not focus on the situation that created it.
I really don't know how he survived and performed the way he performed on the baseball field. Going through all of these things, it was wrong. They wanted you to be like they wanted you to be. And we were not going to be like they wanted you to be. We were going to be like we wanted to be. Because somebody owed us something. Somebody owed us something. And they owed it mostly to Jackie Robinson.
So what I wanted to point out in that video and why I chose it was because, like I said in the very beginning of the slides, so with Jackie Robinson and him being the trailblazer, everything that he did and every way that he acted, he really had to, he really had to guard, because it wasn't him per se. It wasn't him per se, like, oh, Jackie Robinson's mad. It was like, oh, Jackie, he had a bad game. And it was more like, oh, like, this is what happens when you put black people in a baseball field. Like, this is exactly the finished product that you're gonna get. Do you want anger? Do you want revulsion? Do you want this type of energy portrayed to the masses? And so everything that he did, anything that would have been his fault, it would have been all of black people's fault. So essentially, like, he was playing for an entire race, and he couldn't make it. He could make very few mistakes, if any. And before, nowadays athletes have and teams have PR systems, and they have things put in place for athletes to kind of say the right things at the right times and make sure that they don't get any type of repercussion. Back in the 1940s, teams didn't have that, and players had to revolve on just formulating their responses. And with Jackie, one of the things that made him so special is that he said everything from the heart, and and if he had a bad game and he had to hold some things in, he would. He didn't have a Like I said, he didn't have a PR team. He didn't have anybody over. He had his manager and his wife, but for the most part, he had to formulate his own words then and there, and he couldn't let his emotions get the best of him. And so, in this side, the payoff. So the payoff was amazing, given the fact that everything that he had to go through. He ended up winning Rookie of the Year in 1947, and with the season concluded, he had a 297 batting average, which even to this day is still well above the highest batting average that you can get. With 140 hits, 12 home runs, and 48 RBIs, he wasn't too shabby, and he was able to prove to not just the baseball world, but the world in general that he belonged there, that he could play, that he was ready for anything baseball would throw at him. Next slide. So, speaking just for the totality of Robinson's baseball career, he would end up playing like another 10 seasons from 1947 to 1956. Jackie Robinson would end up winning again the Rookie of the Year award, and to this day, the National and American League Rookie of the Year award is actually named the Jackie Robinson Rookie of the Year award. And in 1959, he was the MVP of the National League, and a 7-time All-Star and a World Series champion with the Brooklyn Dodgers in 1955, beating the New York Yankees. Next slide. So with the Hall of Fame, so with all the challenges and adversities that Robinson had to endure throughout his career, he was elected to the Hall of Fame in 1962, being one of the first unanimous Hall of Famers getting 100% of the votes. Like I said, just everything in his professional career and what he had to endure. This for me was probably the most. This is the most achievable award for anybody in pro sports, and for him to do it and for him to perform and overachieve with everything in his plate is definitely a great accomplishment. Next slide. Life after baseball. So I really wanted to highlight a lot of Jackie Robinson and his life after baseball because he wasn't done. Jackie Robinson, the baseball player, concluded, but Jackie Robinson, the person, was still out changing the world. Upon retiring from baseball in 1957, Robinson was hired as the vice president of personnel at Chalkville Onuts, making him the first African American vice president of a major American corporation. He used his involvements in civil rights rallies, including the famed March on Washington in 1963, and Robinson was an active member of the NAACP for more than a decade. Robinson was a nationally syndicated columnist for the New York Post and the New York Amsterdam News, writing passionately about social issues, sports, and family life, and encouraging citizens to become involved in politics and business for their communities. Robinson, in 1964, founded the express purpose for providing financial assistance to African American communities. He founded the Jackie Robinson Construction Company in 1970 to provide housing for low-income families. So Robinson was still changing lives. He was still setting an example and making a difference for his communities and other communities. Next slide. So influences. So Jackie Robinson Day is a traditional event that occurs on every year on April 15th to commemorate his first appearance in a Major League Baseball game. Commemorating and honoring in Jackie Robinson Day, every baseball player and coaching staff wear 42 with no last names in the back, and to commemorate that day in Jackie Robinson's career and the impact that he had on the sport. Also, every team, all 32 teams, would retire Jackie Robinson's number 42, which again is also a commemoration from every MLB team that 42 is more than just a number. It's a symbol and a landmark on the boundaries within race and sports. Next slide, please. Okay. Other influences include the very popular movie in 2013, 42, starting the late Chadwick Boseman playing Jackie Robinson and Harrison Ford playing his manager, Branch Rickey. This film is not only a really, really damn good film, in my opinion, but also is regarded as one of the most historically accurate biopics of any famous person or civil rights activist or athlete out there. Currently has a 95 on Rotten Tomatoes and is definitely a staple between sports and films. And I urge anybody that hasn't watched it already to go and watch it, because it does highlight a lot of what I said and what I didn't say on Jackie Robinson's time with the Brooklyn Dodgers, highlighting especially his rookie year. And next slide. And so I want to conclude again with the famous quote, "A life is not important except the impact it has on others." Definitely, I like to kind of live my life with helping others and um, getting to research and getting to reacquaint myself with Jackie Robinson. His journey is definitely a one of one. For me, it kind of goes with with Moses from the Bible. Him having to sacrifice himself for others is just kind of one of those moments in history where we really have to commend somebody's sacrifice, especially for Jackie Robinson, because without him, not only would Black people not play baseball, but Black people wouldn't join all sorts of organizations, and not only Black people, but also minorities, Hispanics, anybody that wasn't white that gets to be in an organization. Jackie Robinson
We just lost your volume again, Joaquin. So actually, thank you for this really incredibly powerful presentation to close out not only our presentations, but our class for this semester. We will not be meeting next Tuesday because we have completed the presentations. Thank you all for actually really an incredible semester. And I will be opening up that last unit in Top Hat. You'll have from later on this afternoon until the 24th to complete it. And I will also post an announcement on our Canvas course shell with that information. Have a great summer.